How likely are mistakes, accidents, false alarms taken as real, all this kind of stuff in this picture? So like we've kind of assumed the detection works correctly. How likely is it possible, like anywhere that you described this long chain of events that can happen? How possible is it just to make a mistake, a stupid human mistake along the way?
There have been at least 6 known, like absolute, oh my God, close calls. How thank God this happened type
Mm.
scenarios. One was described to me with an actual personal participant, former Secretary of Defense Bill Perry, right? And he described what happened to him in 1979. He was not yet Secretary of Defense. He was the Deputy Director of the Research and Engineering, which is like a big job at the Pentagon. And it was the night watch fell on him, essentially, right? And he gets this call in the middle of the night. He's told that Russia has launched not just ICBMs, but submarine launched ballistic missiles are coming at the United States. And he is about to notify the president that the 6-minute window has to begin when he learns it was a mistake. The mistake was that there was a training tape with a nuclear war scenario, right? We haven't even begun to talk about the nuclear war scenarios that the Pentagon runs. An actual VHS training tape had been incorrectly inserted into a system at the Pentagon. And so this nuclear launch showed up at that bunker beneath the Pentagon and at the bunker beneath Stratcom, because they're connected, as being real. And then it was like, oh, whoops, it's actually a simulation test tape. And Perry described to me what that was like, the pause in his spirit and his mind and his heart when he realized, I'm about to have to tell the president that he needs to launch nuclear weapons. And he learned just in the nick of time that it was an error. And that's one of 5 examples.
Can you speak to maybe, is there any more color to the feelings he was feeling? Like, what's your sense? And given all the experts you've talked to, what can be said about the seconds that one feels once finding out that a launch has happened, even
Yeah.
if that information is false information?
For me personally, that's the only firsthand story that I ever heard, because it's so rare and it's so unique. And most people in the national security system, at least in the past, have been loath to talk about any of this, right? It's like the sacred oath. It's taboo. It's taboo to go against the system of systems that is, making sure nuclear war never happens. Bill Perry was one of the first people
Mm.
who did this. And a lot of it, I believe, at least in my lengthy conversations with him, we had a lot of Zoom calls over COVID when I began reporting this. And he had a lot to do with me feeling like I could write this book from a human point of view and not just from the mechanized systems. Because, and I only lightly touch upon this because it's such a fast, sweeping scenario, but Perry, for example, spent his whole life dedicated to building weapons of war, only later in life to realize this is madness. And he shared with me that it was that idea about one's grandchildren inheriting these nuclear arsenals and the lack of, wisdom that comes with their origin stories, right? When you're involved in it in the ground up, apparently it has, perhaps you're a different kind of steward of these systems than if you just inherit them and they are, pages in a manual.
Mm-hmm. People forget.